I stared at the legal document on my kitchen table, the black letters declaring the official dissolution of my marriage to Garrett. The divorce was final. After 8 years, it was over. Everyone said it would feel liberating, like a weight lifting from my chest. Instead, it felt like a bowling ball had dropped into my stomach, pulling me down into the faded linoleum floor of the apartment I could barely afford. My name is Vivienne Harlow, and at 34, I was starting over with nothing but debt, self-doubt, and the echo of my ex-husband's parting words, "You'll never make it without me, Viv. You don't have what it takes." The memory made me grip my coffee mug tighter, the ceramic hot against my palms. Outside, the November rain pounded against the windows of my shoebox apartment, matching the rhythm of the migraine building behind my eyes. Garrett's voice had been so calm, so certain, a calculated final blow as he walked out the door with his designer luggage, headed to the arms of Astrid, his 26-year-old executive assistant. I took a deep breath, inhaling the mingled scents of cheap coffee and even cheaper air freshener. This wasn't the life I'd planned. I'd given up my fledgling career in architectural design when Garrett's work demanded we relocate 3 times in 4 years. I'd postponed grad school when he said we couldn't afford it on his struggling entrepreneur's salary. I'd shrunk myself to fit into the spaces he left me. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend, Maya. "Still on for tonight? Drowning sorrows equals mandatory friend duty." I managed a small smile, the first genuine one in weeks. Maya had been my rock through this entire ordeal, even flying back early from her business trip to London when she heard Garrett had left. "Wouldn't miss it," I typed back. "Need to purge the apartment of his ghost anyway." 3 hours later, I stood in my walk-in closet, surveying the half-empty space where Garrett's custom suits had once hung. Even his smell, that expensive sandalwood cologne, was fading. Maya lounged on my bed, already on her second glass of wine. "You know what you need," she said, her voice carrying into the closet. "Besides another bottle of Cabernet and possibly a voodoo doll?" I emerged with a black blazer that still somehow had a hint of his cologne clinging to the shoulder, from the last time he'd embraced me before everything fell apart. "What?" I asked, tossing the blazer into a garbage bag labeled "Donate." "A plan." Maya sat up, her eyes bright with the intensity that had propelled her to partner at her consulting firm by 32. "Not just any plan. A revenge plan." I shook my head, reaching for my own neglected glass of wine. "I'm not interested in revenge, Maya. I just want to move on. Not that kind of revenge." She leaned forward, the mattress creaking beneath her. "The best revenge is success. Massive, undeniable success that he'll choke on when he sees it." I laughed, the sound hollow against the bare walls of the bedroom. "With what? My half-finished portfolio? My resume with an 8-year gap? The business connections that all sided with him because he's the one with the real career?" Maya's smile turned knowing, dangerous. "With that brilliant architectural mind you've been letting collect dust. With the vision you used to talk about before he convinced you it was impractical." "Maya." "No." She cut me off, swinging her legs over the side of the bed. "Do you remember senior year? Your sustainable urban design project? Professor Adler said it was the most innovative approach he'd seen in 20 years of teaching." The memory flickered like a distant light. It had been my proudest achievement, a conceptual redesign of aging urban infrastructure that integrated green space, affordable housing, and renewable energy systems. It had won an award. I'd been approached by 3 firms before graduation. Then I'd met Garrett, with his charismatic smile and grand visions, and somehow my visions had become secondary to his. That was a decade ago, I said, collapsing onto the bed beside her. The field has moved on. I've probably forgotten half of what I learned. Bullshit. Maya's tone was both gentle and unyielding. I've seen you redesigning this crappy apartment in your head since the day you moved in. I've watched you sketch improvements to every restaurant and hotel we've visited. You didn't forget anything, you just buried it. I stared at the ceiling, tracing the hairline crack that ran from the light fixture to the corner. She wasn't wrong. Even now, my fingers itched for a pencil, my mind automatically calculating load-bearing capacities and reimagining the inefficient layout of my apartment building. Even if you're right, I said slowly, I'd need clients, connections, capital. You need to start, Maya interrupted. The rest will follow. And I might have a small head start for you. I turned to look at her, suspicion creeping into my voice. What did you do? Her smile widened as she reached for her bag, pulling out a sleek folder with the logo of her firm, Monarch Consulting, embossed on the front. You know that old warehouse complex our firm just acquired? The one downtown they're planning to convert into mixed-use space? I nodded slowly. The Lakeview complex had been all over the local news, a prime piece of waterfront real estate that had been sitting abandoned for years, until a developer purchased it right before the market crashed. It had been tied up in legal battles ever since. Well, Maya continued, they fired the design team last week. Creative differences, apparently. The CEO wants something visionary but economically viable. She used air quotes, rolling her eyes. Sound like anyone you know? My heart started pounding against my ribs. Maya, you can't be serious. That's a multi-million-dollar project. They need an established firm, not a brilliant architect with fresh ideas and a unique perspective on urban renewal. She pushed the folder toward me. Just look at it. The initial request for proposals. Think about it. Sleep on it. They'll never hire me, I said, even as my fingers reached for the folder. Maybe not. Maya stood, gathering her coat and scarf. But what do you have to lose by trying? As she left, I sat in the half-empty apartment, the folder unopened on my lap, my mind racing with possibilities I'd thought long dead. What did I have to lose? According to Garrett, nothing. Because I had nothing without him. I opened the folder, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to dream of something more. The Lakeview Complex proposal deadline loomed just 3 weeks away. I'd converted my small dining area into a makeshift studio, pinning sketches and material samples to every available surface. Sleep became a luxury, replaced by endless cups of coffee and the sound of my pencil scratching against paper late into the night. You look terrible, Maya announced as she let herself in, bearing breakfast and the strongest coffee she could find. It was Saturday morning, and I'd been up since 4 a.m., refining the 3D renderings for my presentation. Thanks, I replied without looking up from my laptop. Just what every recently divorced woman wants to hear. When's the last time you slept? Or showered? She peered at me over her coffee cup. I ran a hand through my tangled hair, trying to remember. Thursday? Maybe Wednesday? Viv. Maya's voice softened as she set her cup down and perched on the edge of my desk, pushing aside a stack of material samples. You're going to burn yourself out before you even get started. I finally looked up, blinking as my eyes adjusted to something other than digital renderings. I have to get this right, Maya. It's my only shot. If I blow this presentation, if you show up looking like you've been living in a cave for a month, it won't matter how brilliant your designs are, she interrupted. They'll think you're unstable. She wasn't wrong. I caught a glimpse of myself in the reflection of my laptop screen, dark circles under my eyes, hair thrown into a messy bun that had stopped looking intentional days ago, wearing the same Northwestern University sweatshirt I'd pulled on. When was it? Tuesday? You're right, I admitted. But I'm so close. I just need to finish these renderings, adjust the cost projections, and shower. Eat something that didn't come from a delivery app. Sleep in an actual bed. Maya was already gathering my laptop, saving my work before closing it firmly. Doctor's orders. You're a business consultant, not a doctor, I protested weakly. And you're brilliant, not a martyr. She pulled me up from my chair. The best ideas come when you give your brain a break. Trust me. I allowed myself to be shepherded to the bathroom, the promise of hot water and food eventually overcoming my resistance. As the steam filled the small space, I leaned against the tile wall, letting the water pound against my tight shoulders. Maya was right. I needed to pace myself. This wasn't just about one project or one client, it was about rebuilding my career, my life, my identity outside of Garrett's shadow. The memory of him intruded despite my best efforts. 6 weeks ago, I'd run into him at a coffee shop downtown. He'd been with Astrid, his arms slung possessively around her slim shoulders. His expression when he saw me had been a mixture of pity and smug satisfaction. Viv, he'd said, his tone falsely warm. You look like you're hanging in there. Garrett, I'd replied, clutching my coffee like a lifeline. You look exactly as expected. His smile had tightened. We should catch up sometime. I've been meaning to check on you, make sure you're managing all right. I'm fine. Of course you are. His tone had made it clear he didn't believe me. But if you need anything, recommendations, connections, just someone to talk to about next steps, I'm here. I know this must be overwhelming for you. Before I could form a response that didn't involve throwing scalding coffee in his face, Astrid had tugged on his arm, whispering something that made him laugh. We should go, he'd said. Dinner reservations at Maison. Take care of yourself, Viv. As they'd walked away, I'd overheard Astrid's stage whisper, God, she looks rough. You weren't kidding about the whole lost without you thing. That night, I'd cried for the first time since signing the divorce papers. Not because I missed him, but because for a moment, I'd feared he was right. The water began to cool, pulling me back to the present. I shut it off, wrapping myself in a towel and feeling human again for the first time in days. Maya had left clean clothes on my bed and the smell of actual food, not delivery, not instant, wafted from the kitchen. Better, she asked as I emerged, dressed in clean jeans and a sweater, my wet hair combed but loose around my shoulders. Much, I admitted, sitting at the counter where she'd laid out omelets and toast. Thanks for the intervention. That's what friends are for. She pushed a plate toward me. Eating interventions, reality checks, occasionally hiding the bodies of ex-husbands. I smiled despite myself. No bodies. Yet. Good, because I have news. Maya's eyes sparkled with excitement. They've narrowed down the Lakeview proposals to a short list. 3 firms. My heart stuttered. And an intriguing newcomer with a refreshingly innovative approach to urban sustainability. She grinned. They want you to present to the full board on Friday. The fork slipped from my fingers, clattering against the plate. Are you serious? Deadly. She pulled out her phone, showing me the email. They were impressed, Viv. Really impressed. The CEO specifically mentioned your integration of historical preservation with modern sustainability practices. I couldn't process what I was hearing. 3 weeks ago, I'd been a divorcee with an outdated degree and no professional prospects. Now I was shortlisted for one of the most significant urban development projects in the city. How did you even get them to look at my proposal? I asked, still stunned. I'm not an established firm. I don't even have a business card. Maya shrugged, looking slightly guilty. I might have implied you were a boutique design consultancy specializing in sustainable urban renewal. And I might have used Monarch's address for your business correspondence. Maya. What? It's not a lie. You are specializing in sustainable design. You just happen to be newly independent. I shook my head, torn between gratitude and terror. This is insane. I can't possibly. Yes, you can. Maya cut me off, her expression suddenly serious. You can, and you will. Because you're brilliant, Viv. You always have been. Garrett just made you forget. The mention of his name brought back that coffee shop encounter, his condescending concern, Astrid's whispered comment. Friday, I said, resolve hardening in my chest. I need to refine the presentation, prepare talking points, finalize the budget projections. And buy a killer outfit, Maya added. Something that says I'm about to revolutionize urban design and make you obscenely wealthy in the process. For the first time in months, I felt something like hope unfurling in my chest, fragile but persistent, like a seedling pushing through concrete. Okay, I said, reaching for my fork again. Let's do this. The Monarch Consulting conference room was intimidatingly sleek, all glass and brushed steel, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. I stood at one end, arranging my presentation materials with trembling hands while board members filed in, their expressions ranging from polite interest to barely concealed skepticism. Maya had called in every favor she had to secure this space for my presentation, insisting that I needed a proper venue, not the cramped meeting room the developer had initially suggested. Optics matter, she'd said, helping me set up an hour earlier. You need to look established, confident. Now, as I smoothed down the front of my charcoal gray suit, another of Maya's contributions to Operation Architect Rebirth, as she dubbed it, I struggled to embody that confidence. These people represented some of the city's most influential developers, investors, and business leaders. They were here to be impressed, not to witness my professional resurrection. Ms. Harlow? I looked up to find a tall, silver-haired man extending his hand. Harrison Wells, CEO of Lakeview Development. We're looking forward to your presentation. His handshake was firm, his eyes sharp and assessing beneath heavy brows. I forced myself to meet his gaze directly, channeling every ounce of conviction I could muster. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Wells. I'm excited to share my vision for the complex. Yes, well, your preliminary designs certainly caught our attention. Though I must admit, we were surprised to discover your limited portfolio. There it was, the challenge underlying his polite words. I could practically hear the unspoken question, who are you and why should we take you seriously? Sometimes a fresh perspective is exactly what's needed, I replied, surprising myself with my steady tone. Especially for a project that seeks to balance innovation with respect for the site's historical significance. Something flickered in his eyes, interest, perhaps, or simply surprise at my directness. We shall see, he said, moving to take his seat at the head of the table. You have 30 minutes, Ms. Harlow. I suggest you make them count. I took a deep breath, surveying the room. 12 people, all waiting to judge me, to find me lacking. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from Maya, who had strategically positioned herself in the back of the room. "You've got this. Remember who you are." Who was I? For so long, I'd been Garrett's wife, his support system, the footnote to his success story. Even after the divorce, I'd carried that identity with me: Vivienne Harlow, abandoned wife, professional failure. But standing there, looking at the designs I'd created, the vision I'd poured my heart and soul into, I realized that wasn't who I was at all. I was an architect. A visionary. A woman with ideas worth hearing. "Good morning," I began, my voice finding its strength. "The Lakeview complex presents a unique opportunity, not just to develop prime real estate, but to redefine our understanding of urban spaces." The presentation flowed more smoothly than I'd dared hope. I guided them through my vision of transforming the abandoned warehouses into a sustainable community hub, preserving the historic brick facades while integrating cutting-edge green technology, creating spaces for local businesses alongside affordable housing units, designing rooftop gardens that would reduce energy costs while providing fresh produce for residents. As I spoke, I watched skepticism give way to interest, then to genuine engagement. Questions came, challenging but thoughtful, pushing me to defend my choices, explain my innovations. "Your budget projections seem optimistic," noted a woman in a crisp blue suit. "How do you justify the initial investment in these sustainable systems?" "With data," I replied, pulling up a slide I'd prepared for exactly this question. "These charts show the 10-year return on investment for each sustainable feature. Yes, the upfront costs are higher, but the long-term savings in energy, water, and maintenance make it not just environmentally responsible, but financially sound." I moved through their challenges methodically, drawing on knowledge I'd thought forgotten, passion I'd buried for too long. When I finally concluded, there was a moment of silence that stretched just long enough to make my heart race with anxiety. Then Harrison Wells leaned forward, tapping a pen against the table. "Ms. Harlow, your vision is certainly ambitious. Perhaps too ambitious for a solo practitioner with limited recent experience." The words hit like a physical blow, so similar to Garrett's dismissals that for a moment, I couldn't breathe. "With respect, Mr. Wells," I said, fighting to keep my voice level, "ambition drives innovation. And while my recent portfolio may be limited, my understanding of sustainable design principles and urban renewal is not." He studied me, his expression unreadable. "Be that as it may, a project of this magnitude requires more than vision. It requires resources, teams, experience handling complex logistical challenges." I felt the opportunity slipping away, replaced by the all-too-familiar sensation of being found wanting. Then Maya's voice came from the back of the room. "If I may, Mr. Wells." All heads turned toward her. "The board asked for visionary but economically viable," she continued, standing. "Ms. Harlow has delivered exactly that. As for resources, Monarch Consulting would be willing to provide project management support, should Lakeview Development choose her design." Murmurs rippled through the room. Wells's eyebrows rose fractionally. "Is that so, Ms. Lee?" "This hasn't been discussed with the Monarch partners, as I understand it." Maya smiled, the picture of professional confidence. "Consider it discussed. We recognize exceptional talent when we see it." I stared at her, struggling to process what she was doing, potentially risking her own professional standing to back me. Wells turned back to me, his expression thoughtful. "Well, Ms. Harlow, it seems you have allies in unexpected places. We'll review all 3 presentations and make our decision by Monday." As the board members filed out, discussing my presentation in lowered voices, Maya made her way to my side. "Maya, what the hell was that?" I hissed, gathering my materials with shaking hands. "You can't just volunteer Monarch for something like this without approval." She shrugged, helping me collect my presentation boards. "I didn't. I talked to the partners last week. They're on board, provisionally. If you get this contract, Monarch handles project management, you handle design. We both profit." I stopped, staring at her. "You planned this?" "I believed in you," she corrected. "There's a difference. Now, let's get out of here before they change their minds." As we left the building, I felt suspended between hope and fear, possibility and disappointment. Monday seemed an eternity away. What do I do now? I asked as we stepped into the bright autumn sunshine. Maya linked her arm through mine. "Now, we wait. And maybe have a drink. Or 5. The weekend crawled by with excruciating slowness. I alternated between manic optimism and crushing certainty that I'd failed, that Wells and the board had seen through me, that Garrett had been right all along. By Monday morning, I was a wreck of nerves and caffeine, pacing my apartment in the same pajamas I'd been wearing since Saturday night. My phone rang at precisely 9 a.m. unknown number. I answered on the third ring, my heart in my throat. Vivienne Harlow speaking. "Ms. Harlow." "Harrison Wells." His voice gave nothing away. I sank onto my couch, bracing for rejection. "Mr. Wells. Thank you for calling. I'll be direct," he said. "Your presentation was the most innovative of the 3 we received. The board was impressed with your vision and your approach to sustainability." I held my breath, waiting for the but that inevitably followed such praise. "However," he continued, "we do have concerns about your capacity to execute such an ambitious project on your own." There it was. "I understand," I said, trying to keep the disappointment from my voice. "That said," Wells went on, "Ms. Lee's offer of project management support addresses many of those concerns. And, frankly, I find myself intrigued by your unconventional perspective." I straightened, hardly daring to hope. "Sir? We'd like to proceed with your design, Ms. Harlow. With some modifications, of course, and contingent upon Monarch's involvement in project execution." The room seemed to tilt, the words barely penetrating the roaring in my ears. "Ms. Harlow? Are you there?" "Yes," I managed. "Yes, I'm here. And yes, absolutely, thank you, Mr. Wells. I'm honored, and I promise you won't regret this decision." "See that I don't." His tone was brusque, but not unkind. "My assistant will email you the contract details. We'll need to move quickly." After the call ended, I sat perfectly still, afraid that any movement might shatter this moment, reveal it as a dream or a cruel joke. Then I screamed, a primal, joyful sound that probably alarmed my neighbors, and called Maya. "They chose me," I said when she answered, my voice breaking. "They actually chose me." Her whoop of celebration matched my own. "I knew it. I knew they would. Viv, do you realize what this means?" I did. It meant the start of something new. A chance to reclaim my professional identity, to build something that was entirely mine. It meant proving Garrett wrong. The thought of him sobered me slightly. "Maya, I can't believe this is happening. 3 months ago I was falling apart in a divorce attorney's office, and now you're the visionary architect behind the Lakeview restoration," she finished for me. "This is just the beginning, Viv. Just wait." She was right. It was just the beginning. But what a beginning it was. The Lakeview Complex project consumed my life for the next 18 months. Days blurred into nights as I coordinated with contractors, revised plans to address unexpected structural issues, fought for my sustainability features when budget concerns threatened to dilute my vision. With Monarch's project management team handling logistics, I was free to focus on the creative and technical elements that made the project special, the rooftop garden system that exceeded energy efficiency projections, the repurposed timber from the original warehouses that gave the community spaces warmth and character, the innovative rainwater collection system that reduced the complex's water usage by nearly 40%. I rented a proper office in the Monarch building, hired 2 junior architects fresh out of graduate school, and gradually built a reputation for innovative, sustainable design solutions. Small projects began coming in alongside the Lakeview work, a restaurant renovation here, a boutique office redesign there, each one strengthening my portfolio and my confidence. My name started appearing in local business publications, then in national architecture magazines. Rising star in sustainable urban design, one headline proclaimed. Harlow's vision reshapes downtown, read another. I was so engrossed in work that I barely registered the passage of time until Maya dragged me out for dinner on the anniversary of my divorce. 1 year officially Garrett-free, she announced, raising her glass. And what a year it's been. I clinked my glass against hers, smiling. I can't believe it's been a year. I can barely remember what my life was like before Lakeview. Miserable, Maya supplied helpfully. You were miserable. And now you're a certified badass with a waiting list of clients and a feature in Architectural Digest. I laughed, the sound free and genuine. I wouldn't go that far. I would. She leaned forward, her expression turning serious. Viv, do you realize how far you've come? You built something amazing from nothing. You should be proud. I was proud. Every time I visited the Lakeview site and saw my designs taking physical form, every time Harrison Wells grudgingly admitted that my excessive sustainability features were proving their worth, every time a new client sought me out specifically for my approach to eco-conscious design, I felt a surge of accomplishment that still seemed somewhat surreal. I am proud, I admitted. I never expected any of this. That's because he convinced you that you couldn't succeed without him, Maya said, her tone hardening. Speaking of the devil. I followed her gaze to the restaurant entrance, where Garrett was being seated with a stunning redhead who definitely wasn't Astrid. New model already, Maya muttered, rolling her eyes. Typical. I found myself oddly detached as I observed him, his expensive suit, his practiced charm as he ordered for both of them, the way he scanned the room to see who might be watching. Had I really spent 8 years of my life with this man? Should we leave? Maya asked, noticing my expression. I shook my head. No. This is our celebration. I'm not hiding. As if sensing my attention, Garrett looked up, his eyes widening slightly as he recognized me. After a brief word to his companion, he stood and made his way to our table. Vivienne, he said, his tone carefully neutral. You look different. Successful, Maya supplied helpfully. The word you're looking for is successful. He ignored her, eyes fixed on me. I've been hearing your name around town. The Lakeview project. Impressive. Thank you, I replied simply, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing how much his approval still mattered, even now. I always knew you were talented, he continued, as if I should be grateful for his recognition. Just needed the right push to get out there. Maya made a choking sound that might have been suppressed laughter or rage. Is that what you call it? I asked, keeping my voice even. A push? He had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. Well, you know what I mean. Sometimes we need to be pushed out of our comfort zones to reach our potential. How generous of you to see it that way, I said, my tone just shy of sarcastic. I suppose I should thank you for walking out on our marriage and telling me I'd never succeed without you. His smile faltered. I never said you did, actually. Verbatim. I took a sip of my wine. But you were wrong. He shifted, glancing back at his date, who was watching our interaction with poorly disguised curiosity. Well, I should get back. It was good seeing you, Viv. You really do look, well. Goodbye, Garrett, I said, dismissing him with a nod as he walked away. Maya reached across the table to squeeze my hand. You okay? I considered the question seriously. Was I okay? More than okay, actually. I'm great, I realized, surprised by how much I meant it. He doesn't matter anymore, Maya. None of it does. She smiled, raising her glass again. To not mattering. And to proving assholes wrong. I'll drink to that, I laughed, the last weight of my past finally lifting from my shoulders. The grand opening of the Lakeview complex came almost 3 years to the day after I'd signed my divorce papers. The transformation was nothing short of remarkable, from derelict warehouses to a vibrant mixed-use development that had already begun revitalizing the surrounding neighborhood. I stood at the edge of the main courtyard, watching as visitors explored the space, their faces registering appreciation as they discovered the thoughtful details I'd insisted on, the heritage wall showcasing the site's industrial history, the interactive display demonstrating the building's sustainable features, the central fountain made from repurposed machinery parts that had been discovered during excavation. You've outdone yourself, Ms. Harlow. I turned to find Harrison Wells beside me, his usual stern expression softened by something that might have been respect. Thank you, Mr. Wells. I'm pleased with how it turned out. As am I, he acknowledged. The waiting list for the residential units exceeds our projections by 30%. The commercial spaces were fully leased before construction was completed. And those sustainability features you fought so hard for? They've reduced operating costs by 22% compared to our standard buildings. Coming from Wells, this was effusive praise indeed. Does this mean you'll consider my proposals for the West Side development? I asked, seizing the opportunity. He actually smiled, a rare sight. Always hustling, Ms. Harlow. That's what I've come to appreciate about you. Yes, we'll consider your proposals. Though I should warn you, you won't be the only one bidding this time. I welcome the competition, I replied honestly. I expect nothing less. He nodded toward the entrance, where local news crews were setting up for interviews. They'll want to speak with you. The visionary behind Lakeview's Renaissance. As he walked away, Maya appeared at my side, resplendent in a royal blue dress that matched the ribbon we would soon cut to officially open the complex. Ready for your close-up, she teased. Local celebrity architect and all that? Hardly, I laughed, though the description wasn't entirely inaccurate. My firm, formally established as Harlow Sustainable Design, had grown to a team of 12, with projects across 3 states and a reputation for innovative, environmentally conscious architecture. Oh please. False modesty doesn't suit you, Maya said, linking her arm through mine as we made our way toward the gathering crowd. Besides, I saw the income projections for this year. You're making what, 5 times what Garrett pulls in at his little venture capital firm? I shushed her, though it was true. Between my firm's growing portfolio and the percentage I'd negotiated on Lakeview's profits, my financial situation had improved beyond my wildest expectations. I'd moved from that shabby post-divorce apartment to a waterfront loft with views that still took my breath away some mornings. Speaking of the devil's spawn, Maya muttered, nudging me subtly. I followed her gaze to see Garrett among the attendees, looking slightly out of place in his expensive suit. No companion this time. Our eyes met briefly across the courtyard, and I found myself wondering what had brought him here today. Professional interest? Curiosity? Perhaps a desire to witness firsthand the success he'd once deemed impossible. Whatever his reason, I realized it didn't matter. His presence evoked nothing in me, not anger, not resentment, not even satisfaction at proving him wrong. He was simply a person from my past, as irrelevant to my present as the drafting techniques I'd long since abandoned for digital modeling. Vivienne Harlow? A young woman with a press badge approached. We'd love to get a few words about your vision for the complex and what this project means for urban renewal in the city. I smiled, turning my back on Garrett and the past he represented. I'd be happy to share my thoughts. As I answered the reporter's questions, describing the principles that had guided the design and the impact I hoped the complex would have on the community, I caught sight of my reflection in the glass facade of the main building, confident, polished, utterly transformed from the broken woman who had stared at divorce papers at her kitchen table 3 years earlier. The official ribbon-cutting ceremony began, with speeches from city officials, Harrison Wells, and finally, me. As I stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd gathered to celebrate this achievement, I felt a profound sense of completion. Lakeview isn't just a development project, I told the audience. It's a testament to the power of transformation, of taking what's broken and abandoned and finding the potential hidden within. Of respecting history while embracing innovation. Of believing that something beautiful can emerge from devastation. I didn't look at Garrett as I spoke these words, though I knew he would understand their dual meaning. This wasn't about him anymore. It was about me, and the journey I'd taken from that shattered woman to the architect and entrepreneur I'd become. After the ceremony, as guests mingled in the courtyard, Garrett approached, his expression oddly vulnerable. "Congratulations, Viv," he said, gesturing at the complex around us. "This is remarkable. Truly." "Thank you," I replied, accepting the compliment with a gracious nod. "I heard your firm's working on the West Side development," he continued, an odd hesitancy in his voice. "My fund's one of the investors." Small world. Ah. That explained his presence today. Professional interest indeed. It is, I agreed. An awkward silence stretched between us. "Look, Viv," he finally said, "I know things ended badly between us. And I said things I regret." I stepped back slightly, my professional armor firm in place. This wasn't the same Vivienne who once cried herself to sleep wondering what she'd done wrong. "I appreciate that, Garrett," I said, my voice measured. "But we both know regret only counts when it precedes the mistake, not when it follows the consequences." His face fell, revealing traces of the vulnerability I once mistook for depth. "That's fair. I just wanted you to know. I was wrong. About everything." Maya appeared at my elbow, a glass of champagne in each hand. "Vivienne, the mayor wants a word." She barely acknowledged Garrett with a perfunctory nod. "I should go," I said, accepting the champagne from Maya. "Good luck with your investments." As I walked away, Garrett called after me. "You deserved better than me, Viv." "I see that now." I turned back briefly. "I know. And I found it in myself. Later that evening, as twilight transformed the complex with soft golden lighting that highlighted every architectural detail I'd painstakingly designed, I stood alone on the rooftop garden. Below me, the courtyard buzzed with celebration, but I needed this moment of quiet reflection. 3 years ago, I'd sat broken at my kitchen table, wondering how I would survive without the man who'd convinced me I was nothing on my own. Now I stood atop the physical manifestation of my vision, a testament not just to my professional abilities, but to my resilience. Maya found me there, leaning against the railing, the city lights spread before me like constellations. "There you are," she said, joining me at the edge. "Hiding from your admirers?" I smiled, breathing in the scent of the herbs and flowers I'd insisted on incorporating into the garden design. "Just taking it all in. Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life." Maya bumped my shoulder affectionately. "Believe it. You earned every bit of this." We stood in companionable silence, watching as the final touches of sunset faded from the horizon. "Ready for whatever's next?" she asked softly. I nodded, feeling the familiar spark of anticipation that had replaced the fear I once carried. "Absolutely," I said, raising my glass. "To new beginnings." Again and again,